In 2015, at the peak of the new atheist movement, a set of scientists took some magnets and tried to target parts of the brain to see where ideological and religious belief came from. Magnets are able to temporarily suppress the electrical signals in parts of your brain, causing them to essentially shut off. You could target your Broca's area and you wouldn't be able to talk for a couple of hours. And so these scientists targeted the posterior medial frontal cortex, whose role is to analyze obstacles and threats in reality. And what they noticed is that the people who had this done to them were more open to strangers, were less likely to see strangers as hostile and foreign. They were more open to immigrants and strangers who were critical of their country, the USA. And they were also at the same time, bizarrely, less likely to believe in God. Now, the volunteers they used for this were conservative, right-wing, God-fearing Americans because they specifically wanted to see, could they end bigotry within the souls of mankind? Had they found a hack to fix the brain, to, get rid of the bug of race nationalism? And of course, they were somewhat delighted. Try this one quick hack and you can get rid of racism and religious bigotry like that. The fatal flaw in all this is that this part of your brain evolved. It is there for a reason. And it turns out when you shut it off, it has other effects. You may become less racist, you may become less religious, but you also lose the ability to assess danger, so you become somewhat helpless. And you also lose the ability to solve problems, because you can't detect errors and assign energy to learn about them. So you lose the ability to adapt to new situations, to go to sleep and wake up having thought through a problem, and essentially to evolve at all. You transform into a dodo. Now, of course, this indicates to us that the natural moral orientation of the human mind is race, religious nationalism. To see yourself as God and country loving. For you to be a patriot under the cross and under the flag. For you to go out there and say, God chose me. God chose my team and my collective, and we're out there taking on the world because we're the chosen people, we're the good people, and everybody else is bad. This, of course, is Yahwehism. It is paganism. It is the natural religion of people all across the world at all times. And there's even more to this story, because the downside, it seems, of this part of your brain is when it is stimulated, it enhances cognitive dissonance. It's designed to watch your thoughts for conflicts, and when you're trying to make a moral decision that might go against your group, this posterior medial frontal cortex switches on cognitive dissonance to allow you to dismiss your inner thoughts, your conscience, what you believe is right, and allow you to pursue what is advantageous to the group, which will allow you to survive and participate in the collective. So this means this part of your mind that creates nationalism and religiosity and identity and helps you join in with a collective tribe is the part of your mind that allows you to lie to yourself. Because its intention is to give you a platonic, noble lie, to get you to say to yourself the most outrageous things that motivate you to participate in life. So this would include the idea that you're the chosen people, that you're the special race, that you're the most important people in the world and God chose you. When in truth, God is a manifestation of your collective's will to power. Of course, he's chosen you because he is you. He's an extension of you. He is the sort of super version of you, which is why Jupiter, the high god, is a super Roman, why Zeus is a super Greek, why Wodan is a super German. This is a natural way for us to orientate ourselves. And this ability for cognitive dissonance explains why identity can become so hilarious. Why? Because the Jews have this brilliant first principle identitarian religion, so many people tried to seize it off them. In Europe, there's been many traditions, such as the British Israelites, that have believed that the Europeans are the lost tribes of Israel and that the Jews are essentially imposters that have come in and stolen our destiny when we're the actual true people of Israel that have always followed the true religion. The black Israelites say the same thing, that Moses had a black wife and that they're the actual true people of Israel. And the Jews, again, are imposters, stealing the covenant, stealing this religion from themselves. And perhaps the Jews themselves are guilty of this from all the way in the past. They wanted to say that they were chosen so they could keep themselves motivated in absolute desolate situations, such as being in deep slavery. So they fabricate their old myths. They take things like the Hyksos and vague memories of the ancient past and spin them up into this grand story of Moses and covenants and promises and this one true God that they have apparently always followed. And this explains why religion and identity is so ferocious and so challenging, because it's engaging this part of our brain. And if somebody comes at you with a challenge to your ideology, this part of your brain is recognizing them as an existential threat and making you think, I got to hurt this person or attack this person or get rid of this person, because they're trying to separate me from the collective and from God and leave me trapped as an individual, vulnerable to the dangers of the jungle and life. You even see this in the researchers. You have, for example, William Dever, and he goes through several iterations of being an evangelical American. He converts to Judaism briefly at one point and then becomes an atheist. As he's interacting with this knowledge, it's ripping his mind apart and throwing him all sorts of different directions. A further illustration of this I love to bring up is to look within Christendom at how we break down into race versions of our religion, because you would imagine in the Christian West, we all follow the same God, therefore we follow the same religion. But if you look at the genetic breakdown of Europe by Y haplogroups that are 5,000 years old, the recent religion of Christianity that came in the last 2,000 years kind of maps onto this. And all these things like orthodoxy and Catholicism and Protestantism, they might seem like there's some sort of theological debate about all these nuances in the Bible, but weirdly they break down into genetic lines. And we see this all the time. We're using religion as a proxy to have race wars. The best example of this is Northern Ireland. People say, oh, that's a terrible religious war. There's all these religious wars going on. Yet again, the Bible is causing a religious war up in the north. But that's not the case. People say, are you Protestant? Because they really mean, are you one of the Scots planters who came into Ireland 400 years ago? And they say, are you Catholic? Because they mean, are you one of the native Gaels? That's a sorting mechanism. That's a very glossy way of saying which race are you, and they will fight on those terms. It's an ethnic war wearing the mask of religion. You look at the Y haplogroups of Protestant Europe, the Germanics basically, and they're usually the ones who become Protestant. You look at the Italio-Celts, the people who are from the Bell Beakers, the OR1b haplogroup that is so dominant, and they're majorly Catholic. That's the majority of their split. They go in this direction. You go over then into the Slavic realms, the OR1a and the Orthodox Church, and that's where it breaks down there. Now there are some, for example, anomalies. We have Poland. What the hell is going on with Poland? Well, interestingly, Poland is Catholic, but it suits this position because you have the Germanics to one side who they hate, who are Protestants, and you have the Slavs, the Russians to the other side, who they hate, who are Orthodox. So Catholic is a nice way to stick the finger up at your neighbours and stick to something that allows you to be aggressive. You also see this in the language. In the Catholic West, we follow Deus. Now, Yahweh asks us to call him Jehovah. He says, call me Yahweh. That's my real name. I'm the one true God. We call God Deus in the Catholic West from Latin. In Gaelic Irish, we call him Dia. In Spanish, we call him Dios. In Portuguese, we call him Dia. It's this concept is there, is present, that we're using a form of Deus from Latin, who is actually the name of Zeus, or more specifically, Deus Pater, the Indo-European religion, and therefore Jupiter, who is the Roman god. So despite the fact that we are following Christianity, we're following essentially the pagan version of this. You go over to the Slavs and you say, well, what do you call God? Do you call him Yahweh? Are you less sinful than us since you follow the true Orthodox religion? And they call God Ba, which is from Slavic paganism. Ba, Bog, this idea. It means divinity. It means the invocation. You go to Protestant Europe and you're like, all right, well, you guys, since you figured out that we were all lying about the Bible, you're following Yahweh, aren't you? And they're like, no, we call him Gott. We call him mein Gott, God. This is an interesting one. This one comes from the Indo-European for invocation and divine. Some people argue, for example, that it may even come from a nationalist chosen people concept of the Goths who've invaded Rome, the Goths, the good, and the Goths. This is something that Nietzsche spoke about. And some people even say the Lombards used to call Wodan and Rodan, which turned into Golan. And then therefore the Germanics are secretly worshipping God or Wodan in the background, something like this. Jung even says the Protestant God is Wodan wearing a dress. So these are these strange phenomenon. Out there in the Far East and the fringes of Europe, if you look at these maps, for example, look at the haplogroup maps, you will find that there's a pocket of Mongolian DNA, and you look at their religion and it's Tibetan Buddhism. How does this even work? This is crazy. This little enclave is following a ethnic religion in order to differentiate itself from its neighbors. So the point here is that this phenomenon is omnipresent.